I've had my robot for a month now. Why won't he let me touch him? I stared at the screen, frowning as I typed. Customer service replied instantly. The robots in our store all act according to commands. Did you not give the activation command, hun? We suggest you check the manual. I glanced at Oliver sitting on the sofa and decided to study the manual a bit more. If all else failed, I'd ask after sales support. His face was perfectly aligned with my aesthetic. It would be a shame to throw him away. But during the company team building, I found that my robot actually reacted to the intern standing next to me. That was when I suddenly remembered that on the day the package was unboxed, it was the intern who plugged in the power for me. That night, I opened the customer service chat box again. The new one can arrive in 3 days, right? Then please send me one. Oliver sat by the dining table, his fingertips tapping lightly on the surface. His standby time had been getting shorter and shorter these past few days. He almost fell in the kitchen just now. I flipped through the robot user manual. It clearly says right here that as long as the activation command is entered. I cleared my throat. You should be able to move normally. I reached out to touch his arm, but the android suddenly shifted to the side, and my hand caught nothing but air. I looked at my hand suspended in midair and frowned. He still wouldn't let me touch him. Apologies, command not activated. He turned his head to look at me, his eyes devoid of emotion. I am going to recharge. Watching his back as he walked toward the charging dock, I pulled out my phone and opened the customer service interface. Oliver was the household robot I bought a month ago. He cost me half a year's salary, specially customized according to my preferred parameters, and I waited a full 3 months to receive the delivery. But the absurd thing was, the robot clearly had the activation command entered, which should have unlocked all functions, yet he absolutely refused to let me touch him. Why is my robot different from everyone else's? He's almost out of battery, but he still won't let me touch him. Listening to the faint charging chime in the living room, customer service replied, "Hun, have you entered the activation command?" I flipped through 2 pages of the manual. How could I make such a rookie mistake? I activated him the very night I received him, entering the password step by step. It took half a minute for the other end to reply. That shouldn't happen, hun. Our robots are all calibrated before leaving the factory. As long as the activation command is given, all functions will be unlocked. We've never had this kind of issue before. I was getting a bit impatient. What good does it do me to lie to you? Customer service, maintain their good temper. Don't be angry, hun. How about this? Send the robot back for an inspection, and we'll send you a new one within 3 days. Almost at the exact moment the customer service message popped up, the charging chime stopped. Oliver walked over, carrying a faint scent of electricity. The loose hair on his forehead drooped down, slightly covering his eyes, making him look rather attractive. I swallowed hard. His looks were absolutely flawless, customized exactly to my taste after all, but to think he actually turned out to be defective. Let me try a bit more. If it still doesn't work, I'll contact you for a replacement. Customer service suggested sending him straight back to the factory, but that was way too much of a hassle. Okay, hun, just let me know anytime if you have any issues. I exited the chat, looking at Oliver's battery indicator light stuck at 60%, feeling a bit puzzled. I asked customer service, and they said this is very rare. I poked his arm, met with a rock-hard sensation. What exactly is going on with you? You don't look broken. The man's charging cable was still plugged in. Hearing this, he paused. When he turned to look at me, his eyes remained completely unreadable, nothing like the robots in the promotional videos whose eyes would light up upon receiving a command. If I still cannot be activated after 3 days, I will cooperate with being sent back to the factory. After saying this, he gave a slight nod, as if breathing a sigh of relief. I felt a wave of frustration. I bought this robot myself, yet I couldn't even touch him. He was just like a display model sitting there. I simply got up and went to the bedroom. Out of sight, out of mind. I bought a robot in the first place just for convenience, someone to chat with, and keep the boredom at bay.
My phone rang.
It was my colleague Daniel Carter. I picked it up, feeling a bit irritable. Don't forget the team building this weekend. I sent the location to your WhatsApp. I knew I couldn't dodge this team building event. The whole company had to go. I rubbed my temples. Got it, I'll be. I looked back and froze. Oliver was packing his charger into a backpack. You really like going out? I hadn't even hung up the phone, and he was already packing up. The charger in the man's hand paused. He didn't say a word, and I didn't think much of it. Maybe it was just the robot's automated programming. I really didn't want to go to the team building, but the director had personally called to push me, so I had no choice. The moment I arrived at the venue, a girl came running over. I stepped aside, frowning at her. The intern, Chloe Carter, looked a bit wronged, her voice soft and thin. You're finally here. I've been waiting for you forever. She was the new intern who just started last month. Honestly, if she wasn't somewhat quick on her feet, I wouldn't even bother mentoring her. Everyone in the company knew she loved playing the innocent victim. Last time she messed up the files, she even blamed it on me for not explaining things clearly. Seeing I ignored her, she didn't look embarrassed at all. Instead, she turned to look at Oliver behind me. Oliver, is your backpack heavy? Let me carry it for you. She even shot me a reproachful look. I know Oliver is a robot, but you shouldn't make him do all the heavy lifting. How could you make him carry everything? I let out a scoff. Then you carry it? Chloe's expression stiffened. Oliver glanced at me, his eyes darkening, but he didn't say a word. My annoyance grew. I simply turned and headed for the lounge, having no patience to watch her put on an act. Because of that, I didn't notice Oliver giving Chloe a slight nod behind my back. During the meal, Oliver sat next to me. The director was giving me a rather strange look. It's just a robot, yet you bring him out like he's some kind of treasure. Beside me, Oliver's fingers twitched. I looked at the director in exasperation. Before I could even speak, Chloe chimed in first. Director, please don't say that. Even though Oliver is a robot, he still has his programmed dignity. Oliver reacted beside me, and I turned my head to look at him. He was actually looking at Chloe, and the indicator light in his eyes even flickered. I frowned and looked closer. Was it just my imagination? Why did it feel like my robot reacted more to Chloe than to me? This was getting interesting. I paid a fortune for this robot, provided him with food, charging, and shelter, and catered to his every need. He said his commands weren't activated, so I kept my hands off him. Yet in the end, all of that couldn't compare to a single hypocritical word of defense from Chloe. Chloe was still chattering away over there, and I was getting incredibly annoyed. Could you just shut up? The moment the words left my mouth, the surroundings fell dead silent. The director frowned and shot me a look, as if he thought I was being too capricious, and the others kept their mouths shut. Chloe looked at me with grievance, then glanced at Oliver, tears welling up in her eyes. A clink of a glass hitting the table came from beside me, followed by Oliver's electronic voice ringing out in the dining room. Could you not be so aggressive when you speak? Everyone present froze. After all, no one in the company had ever dared to speak to me like that. The director slammed his hand on the table and stood up, his face flushed with anger. Look at how much you've spoiled him. Since when does a robot talk to its owner like that? I wasn't angry, just staring at Oliver, finding him a bit hard to read. This robot had been cold and aloof ever since I bought him. Just like a preset program, barely showing any reaction. I thought that was just how his model was, but now I suddenly realized something was off. Wasn't his reaction a bit too intense just because I scolded an intern? Besides, his eyes were like stagnant water when he looked at me, yet there seemed to be a spark when he looked at Chloe. The rest of the meal was utterly unpleasant. When assigning rooms that night, the director absolutely refused to let me share a room with Oliver. You need to starve him of power for a bit, let him know who the boss is. I was too embarrassed to tell the director that Oliver hadn't been fully charged for a whole month, and it was his own choice not to charge. It was just too humiliating to admit. I got thirsty in the middle of the night and went downstairs for some water, only to hear noises coming from the next room. I froze for a second. Why would there be a girl's voice coming from Oliver's room? I stepped closer, and a surge of anger instantly flared up in my chest. I wasn't hearing things. It was definitely Chloe. Her delicate, whiny voice was exceptionally clear in the dead of night. Oliver, thank you for speaking up for me earlier. No one ever helps me at the company, so I came specifically to thank you. Oliver's voice carried a gentle calmness I had never heard before. She just has a bit of a temper, but she's not a bad person. Next time she scolds you, just explain yourself to her, and she won't do anything to you. I sneered inwardly. We had only lived together for a month, yet he sure acted like he knew me well. But then it suddenly hit me. On the day the delivery arrived a month ago, it was Chloe who had plugged him into the power source for me. It all made sense now. My robot wasn't broken. He had been tampered with by someone else before his commands were even activated. No wonder he wouldn't let me touch him. Recalling the customer service rep's words, I turned around, went back to my room, and opened the chat window once again. My robot still isn't working. I'm not going to test it anymore, just send me a new one. Customer service replied quickly. Okay, hun, we'll ship it out tomorrow. It should arrive in about 3 days. I thought for a moment and asked, then what should I do with this one? It took a while for customer service to reply. Don't worry, hun, we will collect the defective robots and process them for scrap. Scrap? I thought about how Oliver always dodged and flinched whenever I got close, and suddenly found it a bit funny. If Chloe hadn't tampered with him, he probably wouldn't have ended up like this. Early the next morning, I walked out of my room yawning and bumped right into Oliver. He had just come back from outside, his clothes still damp with morning dew. Chloe's voice was sweet and cloying. Oliver, you even go for morning runs? That's amazing. If I had the money, I'd definitely buy a robot just like you. That didn't sound right at all. She was obviously saying it for my benefit. Oliver sneakily checked my expression. Seeing no reaction from me, he relaxed and smiled at Chloe. I watched their little interaction and rolled my eyes. What a pair, acting like this right in front of my face. But I had already returned Oliver, so he had nothing to do with me anymore. Chloe didn't have much money. An intern salary was meager, barely enough for her own expenses. Buying a custom robot was completely out of the question for her, and she looked down on the cheap ones available on the market. That night, before the director could say anything else, I volunteered to sleep in a separate room from Oliver. Watching my back as I closed the door, Oliver stood there motionless, his fingers gripping the doorknob tightly. He had probably planned to pull his usual trick, faking a system glitch to lock me out, only compromising when I took a harder stance. He would claim his battery was low, I would sigh and give in, and eventually, I might even let him charge right next to me. But as he stared at the tightly shut door, Oliver's battery indicator light flickered. I was in my room reviewing the specs for the new robot sent by customer service when a knock came at the door. This time I was determined to choose an obedient one. I swiped on my screen as I walked over to open the door. I thought it was room service, but to my surprise, it was Oliver. He looked a bit impatient, but when he caught a clear glimpse of my phone screen, his expression softened. I have all those specs. If you have any questions, you can just ask me directly. I looked up, stunned for a second. I glanced at my phone, then back at him. It took me a moment to realize that he had completely misunderstood. I found it quite amusing. The director was absolutely right. I had spoiled him way too much. Did he really think I was staying up all night studying specs just to figure out how to make him obey? But I couldn't be bothered to explain. He was going to be scrapped soon anyway, so there was nothing left to say. Do you need something? I leaned against the doorframe, my expression blank. Oliver froze. He clearly hadn't expected such a cold reaction from me. He didn't even know why he had come over. He had just been lying in bed, feeling his battery draining rapidly. The image of my back as I closed the door had flashed through his mind, and he had inexplicably found himself knocking on my door. Seeing him just standing there motionless, I started to lose my patience. It's the middle of the night. If you don't need anything, go back to your room. I think. His electronic voice glitched slightly, his eyes fixed intently on my hand. Maybe tonight we can try the activation command. I stared at him in shock. He seemed quite pleased with my reaction, like he was doing me a favor. I almost laughed out of pure frustration. I had treated him well enough this past month, but he really let it go to his head. Did he honestly think I couldn't live without him? I slammed the door shut, too lazy to waste another breath on him. The person outside seemed to stand there for a long time. It wasn't until the middle of the night, right as I was drifting off to sleep, that I finally heard footsteps walking away. Over the next few days, Oliver acted like a completely different robot. He started approaching me, intentionally or not, always looking for excuses to talk. Seeing his battery indicator light growing dimmer, I figured he was about to run out of power. But I had already lost interest, so I just pretended he wasn't there. The day the new robot arrived was a Wednesday. My coworkers had all gone to a team-building event, so the place was pretty empty. I tore open the package. The robot inside smiled at me, his eyes sparkling. He instantly won my heart. When he saw me, he even waved. "Hello, Master. I'm Caleb, ready to serve you anytime." I swallowed hard. Now this was the robot I wanted. This customer service was incredibly reliable. I definitely need to leave a 5-star review later. I circled him twice and reached out to poke his arm. He just stood there obediently, perfectly still. The sound of an argument drifted down from upstairs. I paused, setting aside what I was doing to go up and take a look. Caleb followed obediently behind me. Chloe's voice drifted out from Oliver's room. "Oliver, did you get into a fight with her? I noticed your battery is draining so fast." I checked the manual, and robots like, you can't fully charge without activating the physical contact command, right? My intern was finally dropping her act. I leaned against the doorframe to watch the show. I couldn't hear what was said inside, only catching Oliver's somewhat flustered voice. "Chloe, don't do this. I'm her robot. It'll be bad if she finds out." Chloe's voice was a bit breathless. "But you're almost out of power. I just want to help you charge." Before she could finish, Oliver pushed her out. Still tangled together, the two of them froze the moment they saw me standing at the door. Chloe's clothes were a bit rumpled, and she stared at me with wide eyes. "What are you doing here?" Oliver's battery indicator was flashing almost red, and there were faint marks on his face. "It's not what you think." "I didn't." I shook my head. "I don't mind, because you've already been returned." Caleb stepped forward from behind me. He smiled brightly, but his words were brutally direct. "Oliver, Model XY R709, right?" "Hello, I'm Caleb, Model XY R712. Since you failed to execute your master's commands as a robot, headquarters asked me to notify you that your binding has been terminated. You can leave now." His smile grew even wider as he watched Oliver's indicator light instantly dim. A defective robot that gives its master a terrible experience. That last sentence was absolutely savage. I looked at Caleb. He was much sharper-tongued than I had imagined. Oliver's battery indicator turned completely red, but Chloe's eyes lit up when she heard this. She quickly pulled out her phone and opened a shopping app. "Ah." She let out a gasp, sounding pleasantly surprised. "I won the bid for you at half the price. Now you're my robot, Oliver." Her tone made it sound like she'd scored the bargain of the century. Oliver looked at her, then at me, as if he couldn't process the reality of it. "Master?" I knew that Chloe's motives, from flirting with him in the beginning to binding with him now, were mostly just to piss me off. But you only get mad if you actually care. With such a great new robot by my side, I didn't have the time of day for them. At dinner, the director looked at Caleb sitting beside me, then at Oliver beside Chloe and rubbed his temples. "What are you all playing at now?" Chloe's eyes immediately welled up with tears. "Director, I only bought him because she didn't want him anymore. I don't have the money for a brand new one. Is it a crime to buy secondhand?" Before the director could say a word, Caleb made his move. He casually tossed my half-eaten bread onto Chloe's plate. "Since you love picking up scraps so much, here you go." Chloe turned pale with rage. I stared at Caleb in surprise. I had to admit this robot was exactly my type. Seeing Chloe choked into silence put me in such a fantastic mood that I managed an extra half bowl of rice. When I was too stuffed to move, Caleb sat beside me and gently rubbed my stomach. Now I finally understood why so many people bought these robots. At first, I just bought one for the novelty. The reviews were good, but I assumed they were only good for chores. I never expected them to be this attentive. I glanced back at Oliver. He had honestly almost ruined smart robots for me. Catching my eye, he actually looked pleased and offered me a smile. I found it utterly baffling. He never smiled at me when I bought him, but now that he was bound to Chloe, he was suddenly trying to butter me up. Was there something wrong with his wiring? Did he get off on this kind of twisted dynamic? The thought made him even more repulsive to me. Even that handsome face of his lost its appeal. That night, Caleb came into my room. His service was absolutely impeccable. Drifting off to sleep, I groggily promised myself, I'm definitely leaving a 5-star review tomorrow. But in the middle of the night, a ringing phone jolted me awake. I answered it, only to hear Oliver's electronic voice on the other end. I found it completely absurd. Wasn't he staying right next door? If he needed something, couldn't he just knock? Besides, we had already unbound. We had nothing to do with each other anymore. Unlike Chloe, I didn't make a habit of stealing other people's robots. Master, battery low. System error. Charging required. His voice was glitchy and intermittent, sounding like he was on the verge of shutting down. My phone was suddenly plucked from my hand. Caleb was leaning against a headboard, bathed in the moonlight, looking incredibly handsome. Keeping his eyes on me, he reached out to brush my hair aside and spoke into the phone. You defective piece of junk. Go bother your new master, got it? I'm fully charged and have plenty of strength. Call here again, and I'll rip your motherboard right out. Watching him act so ruthless, I hid under the covers and giggled. He hung up the phone and leaned in, nuzzling my arm with an exasperated sigh. Faulty robots like that should just be scrapped. You're already unbound, yet he still has the nerve to call and harass you. I patted the back of his hand. All right, let's go to sleep. I really didn't want to stay at the team-building resort any longer, so first thing the next morning, Caleb and I packed our bags and got ready to head home. I didn't expect Chloe and Oliver to follow us, clinging on like a stubborn burr that I just couldn't shake off. When I saw them in the parking lot, my face immediately fell. Chloe hurried over and tried to link her arm through mine. Sis, we're all heading back anyway. Let's go together. We can look out for each other on the road. I pulled my arm away, my tone full of distaste. I'm not that close to you. No need. A hurt expression appeared on Chloe's face, and she turned to look at Oliver. But her robot wasn't looking at her at all. His eyes were fixed straight on my trunk, his indicator light flickering on and off. You never let me ride in your car. I let out a sneer. Was this robot ever going to drop it? Back when he was bound to me, he would always dodge and hide whenever I told him to get in the car. Let alone riding in the car, he wasn't even willing to go grocery shopping with me. The only time he showed any enthusiasm was during team-building events. Now I understood it was because Chloe was there. Now that he's bound to Chloe, he's trying to act all deeply affectionate? Chloe's face looked awful too. She lifted her foot and stomped right on Oliver's charging port. What are you looking at? You are my robot now. Seeing Chloe so exasperated, I suddenly felt that bringing them along might actually be quite interesting. At the very least, I could enjoy the show. Inside the car, Caleb sat in the passenger seat, adjusting the music for me. I snacked on some treats while listening to him hum along. Sitting in the back seat, Chloe made a passive-aggressive remark. Sis, you should pay a little attention to your image. You're getting food everywhere. Look at all these crumbs on your seat. Caleb is going to have to clean up after you. I turned my head and glanced at Oliver. He was staring at the snack bag under my seat, his indicator light flashing wildly. Didn't I buy a robot just to do chores? What? Am I supposed to put him on a pedestal? Keep him around just as a decoration? Nice to look at, but completely useless. Oliver's indicator light instantly went out, his screen going completely black for a few seconds. I really wasn't trying to twist the knife. I was just telling the truth. Besides, having a good relationship with my robot is nothing to be ashamed of.
What?
Are you jealous? I looked back at her with a beaming smile as Caleb handed me a bottle of water. Chloe's face instantly flushed bright red. She turned and glared fiercely at Oliver, only to find that his system was practically lagging. He was still staring blankly in my direction, his eyes full of low battery warnings. Chloe finally couldn't keep up her act anymore. She raised her hand and started hitting Oliver. Are you pathetic or what? You've been staring at her since this morning. She already threw you away. You are my robot now. You can't even read a navigation map. What use are you to me? Oliver finally snapped out of it. Looking at Chloe, who had angrily turned to face the window, his indicator light flickered on and off. Caleb was startled too, leaning a bit closer to me. Master, how can she just hit him like that? Doesn't this count as robot abuse? If I were stuck with a master like that, I'd be so out of luck. He deliberately said it loudly for Oliver to hear, watching Oliver's eyes dim. My master is still the best. I gave him a gentle shove, long accustomed to Chloe's temper. This was just how she was, playing the good girl in front of the bosses, but everyone knew what she was really like behind their backs. Now that there were no outsiders around, it was only natural she couldn't keep up the act. Caleb was still over there provoking Oliver. Aren't you going to hurry up and coax your master? Careful, or she might just dump you on the side of the road. When someone knocked on the car window, Caleb was in the middle of peeling an orange for me. Hearing the commotion outside, I frowned, not wanting to deal with it. Who could it be out in the middle of nowhere? But the knocking wouldn't stop. Caleb brought an orange segment to my lips. It might be that old man selling local goods from earlier. Master, you should go take a look. I rolled my eyes and pulled the car door open. Seeing Oliver standing there, I immediately moved to slam the car door shut, but he held it open with a death grip. His eyes were glitching, clearly damaged from a beating. Looking at the scratches on his back, I felt a twinge of malicious delight. What? Got beaten by your master and came crawling to me for comfort. His voice modules seemed to be malfunctioning, stuttering out. I know I was wrong. Being with you was really good. He raised a hand to touch my arm, but jerked it back abruptly. My system was custom built for you from the start. I was corrupted by someone else. I never expected her to. Stop. His condescending tone annoyed the hell out of me, so I cut him off right there. Oliver, do you really think you're that important? The robot in front of me swayed, as if he hadn't expected me to say that. After all, in the past, even if a system had the slightest glitch, I would immediately call maintenance. Seeing I was about to close the door, panic finally set in. I can execute commands normally now. Really, try activating the physical contact protocol again. I shattered his illusion without hesitation. You're a robot, a product I bought with my own money. When I liked you, I could put up with your tantrums. Now, you're nothing but a pile of scrap metal to me. Whatever is going on between you and Chloe is none of my business. I do like your face, but I could easily buy 10 more just like you. Watching his screen glitch worse by the second, I continued. I'm not like Chloe, who has to agonize over buying a second-hand unit. Did you really think I liked your temperamental system? Or your program that constantly freezes up? I looked at him in disgust. Instead of wasting time trying to please me, you'd be better off figuring out how to stop Chloe from smashing your motherboard. After all, she only bought you to spite me. Once she gets bored, you won't even have a place to plug in. The moment I finished speaking, Chloe came chasing after him, wielding a thick branch in her hand. Oliver, what are you running for? Get back here right now. The second I sat back in the car, Caleb leaned in close. He was still holding the freshly peeled orange, his breathing a little uneven. I was wondering what took you so long. Turns out this piece of junk came back to cause trouble. Master, ignore him. He popped a slice of orange into my mouth. His battery is just dying, and he's trying to trick you into charging him. Oliver caught sight of the charger in Caleb's hand, and his eyes went completely dark. I turned away and started the engine, while Caleb whispered beside me. I think I saw his battery bulging just now. He probably won't last much longer. Chloe is way too ruthless. You can't just torture a robot like that. She couldn't care less. It's just a cheap bargain she picked up anyway. I said casually. If it breaks, she'll just buy an even cheaper one. Oliver suddenly lunged forward to pry the car door open, but Caleb was quick and locked it instantly. He pounded on the window from the outside, his voice module emitting a harsh, screeching static that sounded vaguely like he was screaming my name. Chloe chased after him, smacking a branch against his back. Are you crazy? A broken robot trying to rebel. I stepped on the gas. In the rearview mirror, Oliver was being dragged away by Chloe by his charging cable. His eyes flickered one last time in the sunlight before going completely dark. Caleb sighed. So pitiful. I didn't say a word, but in my heart, I felt he brought this entirely upon himself. Once home, I tossed the matter of Oliver to the back of my mind. Caleb was indeed much more useful than him. He would help me tidy up the room, cook meals, and even keep me company watching movies at night. But a few days later, the company's Slack channel blew up. Chloe posted a photo of Oliver in the company Slack channel. He was covered in scratches, his eyes shattered beyond recognition with the caption, "Robot malfunctions are such a hassle." A bunch of people chimed in below, and only a few colleagues who knew the inside story messaged me privately. "How did he end up like this? Chloe is way too ruthless, isn't she?" I replied with none of my business and ignored the rest. But it wasn't long before Chloe showed up at my door with Oliver. When I opened the door and saw them, my brows furrowed tightly. Oliver's eyes were taped over with several layers of clear tape, and his voice crackled with static. "Master, can I come in and charge for a bit?" Chloe stood to the side, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Sis, look at him. You can't just let him run out of battery out here. He's a hand-me-down from you, after all." I stepped aside to let them in. Caleb poked his head out from the kitchen. "Master, who is it?" When he saw Oliver, the plate in his hand nearly dropped to the floor. "Why is he here again?" Chloe shoved Oliver toward the charging port. "Just borrowing your outlet. We can't really let him get scrapped, can we?" I remained silent, watching Oliver plug in the charger as a 1% battery indicator slowly popped up on his eyes. He stared at me, his intermittent voice mixed with static. "I'm fixed. I can execute commands now." Chloe sneered. "You think she still wants you? Stop dreaming." Oliver's screen flickered, and he said no more. While charging, he just sat on the floor, his gaze constantly following me around. Caleb couldn't stand it and blocked my view. "What are you looking at? Keep staring and I'll dismantle your motherboard." Oliver shrank his neck and shifted his gaze away. When it hit 50%, Chloe grabbed him, ready to leave. "All right, that's enough to get you to the repair shop." Oliver suddenly stood up and blocked my way. "Can I stay here? I can work. I won't cost you any electricity." Chloe laughed out of sheer exasperation. "Who do you think you are? Hurry up and leave." He was dragged out by Chloe. As they passed the shoe cabinet, he suddenly stopped. "You used to say you like my model." I watched him being dragged out the door. The last thing I heard before the door closed was Chloe's scolding. "You're just secondhand trash. Do you really think you're some kind of treasure?" I didn't see them for several days after that, and I thought the whole thing had blown over. Until Friday after work, when I saw Oliver downstairs at my office building. He looked even more battered, one arm dangling limply, its wiring clearly torn apart. Seeing me come out, he stumbled over, clutching a USB drive tightly in his hand. "Master, look at this." He handed over the USB drive, the sound of static buzzing loudly. "Chloe saved the company files in here. She wants to frame you." I took the USB drive, but before I could speak, Chloe came chasing after us. "Oliver, how dare you betray me?" She snatched the USB drive, smashed it fiercely onto the ground, and crushed it under her foot. "I knew you were up to no good." Oliver tried to pick up the pieces, but Chloe kicked him to the ground. "You think she'll want you just because you helped her? She already bought a new one." A crowd of colleagues had gathered around, pointing and whispering. Chloe acted like she didn't see them, still cursing. "A piece of junk robot daring to go against me. I'll dismantle you today." She grabbed Oliver's charging cable and dragged him toward the middle of the road, his body scraping against the ground and shattering even more. Caleb shielded me behind him. "Are you crazy? So many people are watching." Chloe's eyes were red. "I'm crazy?" If I hadn't bought him, he would have been scrapped long ago. I was kind enough to take him in, and he dares to betray me. Oliver suddenly used the last bit of his power to grab the hem of my pants. I really know I was wrong. Give me one more chance." His eyes went completely dark, and his arm fell to the ground. Chloe finally looked a bit scared. She let go, cursed bad luck, and ran off. The bystanders murmured among themselves. Some said Chloe went too far, while others said Oliver deserved it. Caleb sighed. "Master, what should we do?" I looked at the motionless Oliver on the ground. suddenly remembering when I first received him. Back then, he was brand new, his screen dazzlingly bright. As I carefully applied a screen protector, he asked me, "Why are you so careful?" I said, "After all, I paid a high price for you. I have to cherish you." Thinking about it now, it's really quite ridiculous. In the end, I still brought Oliver back home and tossed him in the corner of the balcony. Caleb would glance over from time to time. "Master, are you really going to just leave him here?" "What else? Send him to be scrapped," I said while watching TV. "Actually, he might still work if we fix him up." Caleb crouched beside Oliver and poked his screen. "It's just that a lot of parts need replacing." I didn't say anything, my feelings a bit complicated. To say I had absolutely no feelings for him would be a lie. After all, he was customized to my exact preferences. But thinking about how he acted before, I felt it just wasn't worth it. About a week later, I saw a notice online about robot recycling and suddenly remembered Oliver on the balcony. Sliding open the balcony door, I froze. Caleb was squatting on the floor, holding a screwdriver, replacing Oliver's screen. "What are you doing?" Caleb jumped in surprise, dropping the screwdriver on the floor. I just thought he looked pitiful." "Who told you to touch him?" "I just wanted to see if I could fix him." Caleb lowered his head. "He was customized to your parameters, after all. It'd be a shame to throw him away." I looked at the brand new screen in his hands, suddenly feeling a surge of anger. "Do you think I'm going to go soft?" "No, master," Caleb quickly explained. I just feel he shouldn't be like this." Oliver's screen suddenly lit up, showing 10% battery. His system seemed to recover slightly, and he spoke in broken bursts. "Caleb, don't bother fixing me. I'm not worth it." Caleb ignored him and kept working. "Shut up and just focus on charging." I looked at them, suddenly feeling a bit tired. "Suit yourselves." I turned and went back to the living room, but my mind was a mess. I didn't expect Caleb to actually fix Oliver. Although he still looked a bit worn, at least he could move normally. The first time he spoke to me, his voice still had a bit of static. "Master, thank you." I ignored him, and Caleb smoothed things over. "Master just has a sharp tongue but a soft heart. Otherwise she would have thrown you out ages ago." Oliver lowered his head and said no more. From then on, he followed Caleb like a shadow. Whatever Caleb did, he followed suit, never initiating a conversation with me. Once I worked overtime until midnight and came home to find them both waiting in the living room. Caleb had fallen asleep leaning on the sofa, and Oliver stood beside him, holding a blanket. Seeing me return, he quickly draped the blanket over Caleb and whispered, "You're back." I nodded, and while changing my shoes, I noticed he had arranged my slippers neatly. "Caleb said your feet get cold, so he had me warm up your slippers for you." He pointed to the space heater next to the slippers. I froze. This was something he had never done before. That night, I tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep, when I suddenly heard a noise in the living room. I went out to look and saw Oliver charging Caleb, while his own battery was down to just 20%. "Why aren't you charging yourself?" He jumped in surprise and quickly stood up. I'm in no rush. Caleb has to accompany you to meet clients tomorrow. He needs a full charge." I frowned. "You have to work too." He lowered his head. "I'm not important." "Who said you're not important?" I suddenly felt a bit angry. "I bought you to work. How can you work without battery?" I dragged him over to the charging port and only went back to my room after watching his battery level slowly rise. Lying in bed, I suddenly realized that maybe I had been too harsh on him. The company was going out of town for the annual meeting. I originally didn't want to bring Oliver, but Caleb said he was great at fixing equipment and could help out if brought along. On the way, Oliver sat in the very back row, keeping completely quiet. Chloe went too, and when she saw Oliver, her face turned pale with anger. "Why are you still here?" Oliver ignored her, and Caleb stepped in front of him. "He is my master's robot now. He has nothing to do with you." Chloe was so furious she wanted to strike him, but was stopped by a colleague nearby. At the annual meeting, someone accidentally spilled red wine on the projector, and the equipment suddenly broke down. The director was pacing around anxiously. What do we do? It's about to start. Oliver suddenly stepped forward. I can fix it. He squatted on the ground, screwdriver in hand, moving incredibly fast. I stood by watching and suddenly realized that seeing him work so earnestly made him look a lot more pleasing to the eye than before. In no time, the projector was fixed. The director patted his shoulder. Good robot. Really impressive. Oliver lowered his head. Just doing my job. During the party, Caleb pulled me to dance, while Oliver just stood in the corner watching. I suddenly felt a bit bad for him and waved at him. Come here. He froze for a moment, then slowly walked over. Let's dance. He shook his head. I don't know how. I'll teach you. Caleb pushed him in front of me. Master dances really well. Oliver's hands were incredibly stiff. Holding his wrists, I could feel him trembling. Don't be nervous. He nodded, his eyes fixed on my feet, terrified of stepping on them. After one dance, his battery indicator lights all lit up. He seemed rather happy. Thank you, Master. Looking at him, I suddenly smiled. You're welcome. After the annual meeting, Chloe was fired. I heard her theft of the documents had been discovered. Before leaving, she came to see me once. Not seeing Oliver, she was a bit surprised. He's not with you? He's working. Chloe sneered. You're actually keeping him? Don't forget how he treated you before. That was in the past. I looked at her, still better than some people who just use others and throw them away. Chloe choked on her words, glared at me, and left. After she left, Oliver came out of the back room, holding the newly repaired printer. She left. Yeah. He lowered his head. Thank you. What are you thanking me for? Thank you for not telling her that I backed up the documents. I froze for a second, finally realizing that the USB drive he gave me that day wasn't the original at all. You knew all along she would smash it? He nodded. She has a bad temper. I was afraid she'd destroy the evidence. I suddenly felt that this robot wasn't so annoying after all. As the days went by, Oliver seemed like a completely different robot. He would take the initiative to cook for me, remind me to bring my keys, and even remembered all my habits. Once I got sick. Lying in bed with a high fever, I groggily felt someone wiping my forehead. I struggled to open my eyes. In my blurry vision was Oliver's face. His movements were very gentle. The cool towel placed on my forehead dispelled much of the scorching discomfort. You're awake. His voice was very soft, the robotic static long gone, sounding no different from a real person. Caleb went to buy medicine. Hang in there a little longer. I opened my mouth, my throat dry and aching. He understood immediately, turning to pour a glass of warm water, carefully letting it cool until it wouldn't burn my mouth before handing it over. Drink slowly. He supported my back, his fingertips applying just the right amount of pressure, steady, yet not intrusive. After drinking the water, my mind cleared up a bit. You didn't charge yourself? His hand paused, avoiding my gaze. Taking care of you comes first. Silly. I didn't have the strength to argue with him, so I just gently patted his arm. Once Caleb gets back, go charge yourself. He didn't push back this time, obediently nodding. Okay. When Caleb returned, carrying a large bag of medicine, he saw Oliver sitting by the bed, tucking me in. He raised an eyebrow but said nothing, simply handing the fever medication to Oliver. Give it to her according to the instructions. Oliver took the medicine, skillfully poured a glass of water, and only breathed a sigh of relief after watching me swallow the pills. In the afternoon, I drifted in and out of a groggy sleep. Every time I opened my eyes, I either saw Oliver keeping watch beside me with a book or changing my cold towel with gentle, quiet movements. Caleb, meanwhile, bustled between the kitchen and the living room, simmering soup one moment and disinfecting surfaces the next, keeping the house in perfect order. Once my fever had gone down a bit, I leaned against the headboard and watched the two of them, suddenly finding the scene quite heartwarming. Did you two know each other before? I asked casually. Caleb, who was clearing the dishes, smiled. You could say that. We came from the same production line. He is 709 and I am 712. We're only 3 serial numbers apart. Oliver walked in holding a bowl of congee. Hearing this, the tips of his ears turned slightly red. We met a few times before leaving the factory. So that's how you knew how to fix him? I looked at Caleb. Caleb shrugged. That's part of it, but on the other hand, he winked at Oliver. Although this guy used to be as stubborn as a rock, he's not bad at heart. He was just led astray. Oliver placed the bowl of congee in front of me, handed me the spoon and murmured, I was in the wrong before. I scooped up a spoonful of congee. It was warm and perfectly soft, exactly the texture I liked. As long as you know you were wrong. He looked up, his eyes brightening like ignited stars. That was exactly the look I had been hoping to see since the very first day I bought him. From then on, Oliver completely transformed into the model robot of the house. In the mornings, he would wake up earlier than me, prepare breakfast, and set it on the table, and even iron the clothes I planned to wear that day until they were perfectly smooth. At night, when I came home late from working overtime, he would always leave a light on, with a warm late-night snack waiting on the table. If I casually mentioned craving cake from that shop in the south of the city, he would take a long detour the next day to buy it, carefully packing it in an insulated box so it wouldn't melt. Caleb would occasionally joke with him, Are you trying to make up for everything you didn't do before? Oliver would always just smile and say nothing, but when he looked at me, the tenderness in his eyes practically overflowed. Once, I drank a bit too much and was helped home by Oliver, my head spinning dizzily. When we reached the bottom of the building, the evening breeze sobered me up a bit. Watching how earnestly he was taking care of me, I suddenly remembered how awkward things had been when I first bought him. Oliver. I tugged at his sleeve. Why did you always avoid me before? He stopped walking and looked down at me. The light from the street lamp spilled across his face, making him look exceptionally gentle. Back then, my system was experiencing interference. I just felt like keeping my distance was the right thing to do. His voice was a bit hoarse. But now I finally understand that being close to you, taking care of you, is exactly what I should be doing. He paused, carefully reaching out to gently touch my hair. Seeing that I didn't pull away, he finally dared to continue. Besides, back then I always felt, you were so wonderful, and I was afraid I wouldn't be good enough, that I would let you down. I looked at his nervous yet sincere expression and suddenly smiled. Silly, I customized you precisely, because I wanted you by my side. His eyes lit up instantly, as if fully recharged. He asked cautiously, Then, the me right now, I haven't disappointed you, have I?
No.
I shook my head and took his hand in mine. His hand was warm, carrying a reassuring warmth. The you right now is wonderful. He froze for a moment, then squeezed my hand tightly in return. On the way home, he held my hand the whole time, never letting go. Opening the door, we found Caleb sitting on the sofa watching TV. Seeing our joined hands, he whistled. Oh ho, finally figured it out, huh? Oliver blushed, helped me to the sofa, and then went to pour me the hangover remedy soup. Caleb leaned in close and whispered, I told you he had it in him, right? He used to be a stone you couldn't warm up, but hasn't he turned into quite the caring gentleman now? Looking at Oliver's back as he busied himself in the kitchen, my heart felt warm. Perhaps there was indeed a lot of unpleasantness in the beginning, but after all the twists and turns, he still found his way back to my side, filling in those missed times in the most sincere way possible. One day, I dug out the original order from when I bought the robot. Looking at the custom parameters section, personality setting, gentle and considerate, clingy, master-centric, I suddenly smiled. It turned out he was meant to be like this from the very beginning. Oliver walked over carrying a plate of fruit. Seeing the order in my hand, he asked curiously, What are you looking at? Looking at how good my taste is. I looked up and smiled at him. To have customized such a perfect robot. He fed a sliced strawberry into my mouth and said earnestly, Being your robot is my greatest fortune. Sunlight spilled in through the window, falling on him, warm and cozy. Caleb was humming a song while cleaning up nearby. Everything was just right. I knew this was exactly the life I wanted most when I bought the robot. The end.
Moral of the story. If your robot starts ignoring you but magically gains feelings for your intern, don't panic. You didn't buy a broken AI, you accidentally downloaded a full-blown workplace drama update. Also remember, never trust, he's just a defective unit. Always check who plugged in your expensive emotional support boyfriend. And most importantly, if customer service says, "This has never happened before," congratulations, you are now in episode 1 of a 40-part romance series. Basically, you didn't buy a robot. You bought a jealousy DLC pack with legs, a charging port, and unresolved emotional baggage. And in the end? 5-star review, 0 complaints, just mild emotional damage and 2 extremely competitive androids fighting for Wi-Fi privileges.